water cycle update. And it feels so good to be rugged so bad. A very happy Memorial Day weekend to those listening at CryptoTalk.fm. My name is Leicester. I'm your host. I had a revelation, and I'm going to follow on. I did an update a little while ago where I divulged, look it up, that I had built a crypto wallet. And I've been using it for testing and using it for doing the things that a lot of these crypto projects suck at, which is actually strength testing it, rigor testing it, not going live until it's robust. I set up full hosting for it, so it's fully self-hosted. It doesn't require hardly any server resources. It just runs, and it's pretty darn slick, to the point I got to thinking the way it runs, I could build pretty much anything on this same kind of structure, and I could fork it on because I have my own server farm stuff, and I could fork it out and get everything running. And if something went wrong with server A, it would be seconds to spin it up on server B in a pinch. Would I need to do that? I don't think so, but I could. This gave me more insight as to the failures of the thorium ecosystem, which I covered on out of cycle here. But what Prism Wallet, just so you have a high level, in my mind, it does so much that the main ones just simply suck at, and it does it in such a slick way that I'm almost convinced that those wallets, not malicious, but that they are either incompetent or they've lost the plot, as my friends over the pond say, because I've got so much functionality in parallel what they've got. I did drop Change Now and went with Simple Swap because Change Now are a bunch of numbnuts who had a bug on their site. And when I told them to fix it on their site, they told me to give them a screenshot of their own website. And I'm like, screw you, bro. So I went Simple Swap, no problem. Simple Swap works really good, clean, neat. And then I have the internal swap, which is Lie.fi. It used to be 0x. I went to Lie.fi. I want to run through some Lie.fi scenarios just to make sure I see what that's doing what I want it to do. But so far, I don't have any concerns with it. But it's the only wallet out there. And I'm going to put this statement. It's the only wallet out there that natively supports send, receive, and dollar balance and USD amount of BlockDAG, the coin. It's the only one that does, because Cold Wallet used to be, it looks like it's been abandoned. As of April, I don't see any significant updates, and Transfer stopped working on it, and the balance stopped updating on it, which I theorize goes to my later update here today. So Cold Wallet does not. Trust Wallet damn sure does not. It'll show you coin balance, but not USD equivalent dollar amount, even though it could. It does not pull price information for it at all. I don't check MetaMask because they're scams, but I'm pretty sure I saw some people say that it does not. Base Wallet can't because it won't have it. There's issues. So, as far as I can tell, mine is the only one that fully supports the BlockDAG natively coin. And that's because I bought some. Because I went to the exchange, so I was telling people about WeBot. I bought some from the exchange and just sat on it because at that point, it's in my hands, not the team's hands. With all the after sales and all the garbage. And I'm trying to tell people, WeBot's there, man. You can buy and sell and trade it there and do what you need to do. There's all sorts of stuff happening. And I maintained there's a level of incompetence with this. That's going to be today's update. But just so you have a sense of this, I think that the vast majority of people out there have less than 1 million BDAG. I think that the vast majority of people, and when I say have, I'm saying in their wallet, not locked up, because I think the lockup doesn't really matter yet. I'm talking in your wallet. They have less than 1 million. Now, let's assume there really are 150,000 people. If there's 150,000 people, it's not possible for the vast majority of them to have a significant coin hold, right? Just by numbers. Assuming there were 150,000 folks, and going off of 150 billion in total, or max rather, supply, that means that if everybody held one coin, which is obviously nuts. I'm just using clean numbers here. If everyone held one coin with that clean slice assuming those numbers are accurate, which we can't say, you would get to a price of 5 zeros and 1. Now, if you look at the current price, and I'll use CoinMarketCap because I think it's the cleanest for this exercise. If you look at the current price of BlockDAG, we are at 4 zeros and just shy of 6. So it doesn't take that far to go down to get to 5 zeros and 1. Now, if we say there's 150,000 people, and if each one of them held one coin off of 150 billion in max supply, and we would get to a target price, actual price of 5 zeros and 1, that means that the vast majority out there cannot be holding significant amounts of the coin just by going on the current price. Well, this is a revelation because it tells us price opportunity. It tells us what really happened. It tells us what people are doing. It tells us sentiment. We can learn a lot from these basic numbers. If we take on face, basically the vast majority were selling out, the vast majority are not holding coins. It means the vast majority of people didn't go to exchanges. It means the vast majority of people are still but my coins are locked in. That's the vast majority of people. Fine. If they want to stay locked in it, then they can stay locked in it if that's what they want to do. I don't understand it myself. I really don't. But fine. Now, if we accept everything I'm saying, because I'm giving you straight numbers, you can verify yourself to be the truth. And if we accept what I'm saying, what do we glean from that revelation? We glean that there's an opportunity for price to explode. The explosion can only happen off of sentiment, because sentiment would arguably be the only reason people would not be buying. This is a basic understanding, right? The people who are locked up, though, because despite my every effort, they are so fixated on the coins that are, quote, locked, or the people who FOMO bought off of the garbage after sales, where they saw mythical numbers of, I saw one person said, yeah, I think he said like $100 or something. It's supposed to give me 8 billion coins. So what we're suggesting is you're going to get a significant portion of the max supply on a small investment because, unfortunately, that's how it was marketed. And I explained the concept of points and how that works, but people don't get it because all they see is a cheap price for a significant amount of coins. And they think that all of a sudden it's a lottery ticket. It's gambling, rolling the dice, which is ironic given they launched a casino. So this told me where everybody stands. The vast majority stands. The vast majority are sitting on a very small number of coins. The vast majority are not sitting on significant amounts. The ones that are whales, they're either insiders. I'm talking true whales. They're either insiders or they're people that just don't care. You know, there are some situations like Satama where they saw that this could do something. They just tossed some money at it. Let me just level set. When I said whale earlier, it used to be that the whale meter on their site, I mean, you had to put a pretty good amount of money in the thing to be considered a whale. You know, minimum 5 figures, if not 6, to be considered a whale. There's 2 measures of whale. There's how much money you put in it, and there's how many coins you hold, or percentage said of coins. Now, if we strictly go off of the amount of coins that one holds, a case could be made that Leicester at CryptoTalk.fm qualifies as a whale. If we strictly go off coins, not dollar amount, absolutely not by dollar amount, but by coins. I'm talking in wallet because I bought from the exchange. Because why not? It wasn't expensive. Even now, as I see the price and it declines, you know, if it got down to 4 zeros and 5, let's say, I might consider buying some more because it's a DCA strategy. And it's still not significant money. It's throwaway money. I don't care if I lose it. It doesn't matter. Why? Because if there is an explosion, which there's a chance it could do, which I'll get to in a second, boom, that's, you know, and then you take profits. And as long as you're smart about it, you don't expect to be made a millionaire off anything because the team is incompetent, then what's the problem? Well, I did some digging with my Prism wallet. Because it natively supports BDAG. I did some digging. The CEO on a recent AMA, he was doing, so they've been doing allegedly burns. They did burn allegedly the other day, and then yesterday they did another one. Now, the problem, and hopefully he hears this, but the problem with the burns is when the first one happened, there's transactions missing. There's 750 million coins, one transaction. It doesn't show on the BDAG scan. It straight up doesn't show. But the balance in the burn wallet or the dead or the zero wallet does seem to reflect 1 billion coins. So we assume that's legit, but the transactions are incorrect on BDAG scan. You cannot be a viable blockchain if you do not have reliable transaction history. It just isn't the case, but it explains what's going on with the staking app. And I'll close with that, but follow me. So yesterday's burn then, I happened to notice the CEO went to a different explorer and presumably was connected with a different RPC. I don't know that, but he went to a different explorer on DAGTech, which is DAGTech, DAGTech .network. That was odd. I didn't expect that, but he clearly did go to a different site, did a burn, and he claimed, so he was showing the deal, did a burn, he claimed. He said, okay, now we're going to continue doing this for however long it takes until we get to some sort of whatever that they need to do. All right, well, this time, this is a different wallet. It's the DEAD wallet, which is kind of the traditional true dead wallet because it represents something that does not have you couldn't get a private key out of it. So you can validate that second one for sure on BDAG scan. But I was confused why he was going to the DAGTech network. And from what I can tell, the DAGTech network is somehow in communication with the BDAG scan at a data layer. So my wallet, because of how I built it, I was able to get a little bit more insight into what I think is happening. And it explains, if I'm right, what's going on with Cold Wallet, what's going on with the staking app, what's going on with coins going missing in the wallet randomly. Because I do see that. Even with mine, I do see that still happening. It just mine doesn't happen as frequently, but I know why and when it happens, so I can anticipate it's going to happen. And I wanted to share what I was finding so you can kind of get a sense of it. It's a little bit over technical, and I'll try to simplify best I can. This is theory about based on what I'm seeing, but it can only be. And there are people on CoinMarketCap who are verifying what I'm seeing. Let's talk about the DAG, just in general. DAG infrastructure. This idea that there's multiple different nodes and there's multiple different things happening all at the same time. It's not linear, right? That was the whole sales pitch. Has been the sales pitch since day one. What if, so here's my supposition. What if Turner tried to create that structure? He tried to build it out because they started with UTXO. They sucked at it, couldn't figure it out. So they fell back to EVM model, but they said, we'll still keep going with the structure, DAG structure, because that's what we sold. What if Turner couldn't get it figured out? They couldn't get it to work. They couldn't get it stable. They couldn't get it strong. They didn't have the skill to do it. Gets fired. Okay. Still have to deliver something. So now they got to rush it out and they outsource the DAG part of it. Again, this is all supposition. I don't have any evidence. I went in the room, but they outsource the DAG structure. Now, what does that mean? In order to understand conceptually how this would work, you'd have to think about what we see and what we know must be true about the BlockDAG side. We know that they're struggling to get miners out the door. We don't know why, but we know they're struggling to get miners out the door. We know coins exist. They're in the wild. You can have them in your wallet. So they must have been either minted or mined. We suspect they were minted. I'll get back to that later in a different episode. But we know coins are in the wild. We know transactions are processing. So we know something's running. That's all we really know, truly know. They're staking. It's buggy. We'll get back to that. What if the BlockDAG team set up an EVM layer? An EVM layer would need to only do the bare essentials of what it takes to process linear transactions. That's all it really needs to do. It would have sequential block processing, but at the end of the day, all it needs to do is maintain the transactions that it processes. It doesn't need to do anything. It doesn't need to do any heavy lifting per se. It just needs to maintain somewhat of integrity of the chain. What if that layer then is when you connect your wallet, you do transactions, you're saying, I want to stake, I want to unstake, I want to send, I want to receive. You're sending a request to do something. What if that layer is then handing it off to this DAGTech? DAGTech under the hood is clearly running mining infrastructure. Dowie, who is on the AMAs, you might have seen him, he's talked about it. He talked about the setting up of the miners and here's how this works. And there was a point in one of the AMAs where he showed what appeared to be the tech specs of the mining hardware. And they paused it and they did analysis and they pointed out that it looked like the specs were no better than a cell phone specs. Very underspec'd hardware. If you get a chance to take a look at it, you can actually see on the DAGTech Explorer all the different transactions that are pumping through it and including the mining transactions. What if, just what if, the mining is actually happening on the DAGTech side and there truly is that hardware, but it's been purposely throttled because of this performance problem that seems to be surfacing itself, where they've purposely throttled the hardware, as in the hardware they wanted to do was just simply too strong for the blockchain to handle. Now, why would that be the case? You have a race condition. If your nodes are not in concert with the mining hardware and the amount of mining hardware that's in the wild, you run into a problem because you cannot keep things in sync because they're out of whack, right? So let's assume, and this is all theory, let's assume, for sake of argument, that the lack of nodes and the lack of strong nodes, if you don't have good, strong nodes, there's no real consensus among them, you're so distributed with a small amount of nodes, they can't keep things in track. Your miners can't be going too fast, right? But you would expect to have a significant number of them in the wild along with the significant number of nodes, just because to be able to handle high transaction count, you need to have a strong architecture in order to do that. Well, that architecture costs a lot of money to maintain. There's a lot of electrical costs. There's hosting costs. There's a lot. And so often you'll see some of these providers go with AWS or some cloud provider. Those cost money. So what if DAGTech came along and said, well, we'll handle the architectural backend. We'll handle the mining. We'll also set up our own RPC node that helps support some of that stuff. And then all you have to do is intercept the inbound transactions. So you'll be the inbound. You receive it. You duly note it. You give it to us. We'll process it. We'll give it back to you. So that it creates kind of this, I refer to it as a ghetto version of a DAG. The layer over top of it is basically a communication layer, which is BDAG scan. And it's talking back in to this DAGTech architecture, which is actually doing the work on what really is the chain, and that you're not really interacting directly with the chain at all. What if that's the case? What if there really is a DAG, as in DAGTech, but the BlockDAG side is not that? So then you're like, well, how does that benefit anybody? That's a good question, isn't it? Because if the architecture I'm describing is what's really in play, which is that you really just have an abstract layer, you're talking to an abstract layer, it's pumping transactions and offloading them to a third party, you have a huge risk. If DAGTech pulls out, you have nothing other than a generic chain. If DAGTech goes down, you have nothing. There's all sorts of risk in that structure. The only way to mitigate that risk would be you have to have your own architecture and you have to be willing to foot the bill and handle it. My guess is the BlockDAG team, because they gutted everybody, don't have the staff or even the core competency to do it. And that's why they chose this, to at least buy time until they could get to a point of some financial solvency to where they could start building it up on their own and then take it. And I think they're just not being transparent about what really happened. I think that they started with the vision of doing it themselves, got to a point of realizing they were not equipped to do it, then fired Turner because he didn't have the skills and knowledge to do it. Somebody takes over that at least knows a guy that knows how to do some of that stuff, sets it up as this outsourced type setup. They take over the front end layer. That's why we probably haven't seen Jeremy since, because he's too busy on the front end side to try to get at least to the point that everybody's communication's working. Meanwhile, the tickets are piling up to the point they started blocking people from the support portal, I'm told. And they can't keep up. They can't keep up. They got the tap miner stuff. They got the X10 stuff. And they're saddled with not more nonsense marketing. This would explain then the nonsense marketing and the aggression of the nonsense marketing, because they need to get more money in. And I don't think they want to stay with this structure, because I think they realize it's not sustainable. I think they did something to try to keep things going, at least in the short term, to meet whatever deadlines are being imposed until they get to a point of financial solvency to where they can build out. If I'm right, they'd have been better served by just being honest about it. We don't have, and then they got to answer the question about the pre-sale funds, right? I know some money had to go to DAGTech, so they're getting paid somehow, because they wouldn't do this if they weren't getting paid. It's not a charity. So some money had to go to DAGTech. So we accept that must be in. Based on what I see, I'm going to figure that number had to be at minimum 1 million, if not a couple million, to just get things up and running off the ground. I don't know what all went into any of this. I'm saying that from what I see, there's some layer that BlockDAG's managing that doesn't seem to really be doing anything, because it seems like it's offloading to this DAGTech, and DAGTech's really doing the work. I noticed then I did a send. So I was doing some coin sends. I was getting pumped into my own wallet. I did a send, and it showed up on one side, which was on the BDAG scan side, but it did not show up on the DAGTech side, which didn't make any sense. And it took a long time for it to show up on the DAGTech side. That means there's some sort of synchronization problem between the two. Well, if you're dependent on both, that sync time has to be shored up. You got to fix that, because you certainly can't run significant transactions if you cannot keep these two things in sync, if you're going to do that architecture, which is why it's a bad architecture. You're beholden. That the whole point of blockchain is the integrity of transactions and threads. Well, if you think about what's happening with staking, people are saying, well, on staking, I log in, I don't see my coins, it takes a while. That's related to what I'm describing. There's this sync issue between these two, and it's impacting the apps at the BlockDAG side, which of course they're just AI apps, but they're impacting the app's ability to do what you're supposed to do. If you think about people reporting that coins go missing from the wallets, which again, I can replicate that situation. Yes, that's because there's a sync issue. Things are not in sync. When I did my send, it was still trying to report back the prior balance. And then it would go, okay, here's the clean balance, but then back to the old, and then back to the clean, and then back to the old. So that tells me every time it's hitting the RPC, it's reporting back the old balance prior to send, but then at some point it synchronizes and shows my new balance. In the RPC pool then, what's likely happening is I'm talking to both the DAGTech and the BDAG side, and they're not in concert. And it took about a minute or two before everything kind of settled down. I'm saying, folks, if I'm right, this is not a sustainable model. However, it's a ghetto version of a DAG. It's a ghetto DAG. So when they make claims that there's a DAG, they didn't make claims that they created a DAG. They claim that there was a DAG. There is somewhat of a DAG underneath this, but it's a ghetto. It's like I don't want to use the term, but it's like a Temu version of a DAG. From what I see, there's an EVM layer. It's a straight up fork of Ethereum layer. I don't think they're using all of its functionality at all. I don't think they are, but they might do. I don't think they are. And then underneath it, there's this DAG infrastructure, DAG-ish infrastructure, because I don't think DAGTech's that clean either. It's certainly running a lot of transactions, but I don't think it's significant in what it's doing. On the DAGTech side, I suspect that the throttling of the miner hardware is simply because they realize it's not performant. And if it were a DAG, it would be performant. That's the whole benefit of it. So I think they throttled the miners to try to get the coins out in the wild. And I saw it. It's only doing like, okay, here's 9, here's 9, here's 9. Well, that's crazy. But if you remember the earlier quotes about the miner, they were talking like, okay, with this X30, I think it was like 300 coins a day. With the X100, it's like 600 coins a day. So it doesn't surprise me to see the 9999. But why would anybody bother doing that when a simple investment of, $10? You can get 100,000 coins. And you think the electrical cost, it doesn't make sense. None of it makes any sense. Except if you grant what BlockDAG built is insufficient. It's like 20% of what should have done. And then they outsource this other 80%, and they're trying to get the two to work together. Meanwhile, the miners are throttled. So even if you did get one, it's not financially worth it. But they're trying to hack it through to try to get financial solvency. So now they're just building shit over top of it, hoping that people jump in and start buying to try to help keep things funded and keep things going. It's valid to ask the question about the pre-sale funds. I'm saying that there's stuff being built, but it's Timu, it's ghetto, it's childish, it's rookie, it's rudimentary. There's no strong strategy behind anything. It's rushed. And it's so close to the failed November 13th Vegas event for Saitama. For those that weren't there, I didn't physically go, but I saw the video from Jake again when he was drunk. But what happened was they did a Times Square thing, right on Times Square, a banner, and it said, yep, cite a mask, and you're going to be able to download it at the event on November 13th. You're going to be able to, we finally have it launched. Then just a couple days out, they said, well, yeah, it's not going to be ready. We're not going to have it available. We're just going to party and celebrate our success. So they did this shindig with a bunch of alcohol, allegedly hookers and blow. I can't prove that part, but allegedly. Certainly there was alcohol. We knew this. But they were just partying. That's all they were doing. There was no downloading the mask. It wasn't ready. The mask came later. It was a buggy shit show. Just everything reminds me of that. Everything reminds me of that, where they just did not have any skill to pull off what somebody had in their mind. And then eventually they got it somewhat stable. By that point, it's too late. That's what I sense here. I sense it's like they're doing stuff. There's certainly stuff being built, but it's so rookie. It's so outlaw, rudimentary that, anybody who invests, you're doing it because it's gambling, not just the casino. I'm talking in general. You're gambling. You're gambling that it'll turn into something eventually. That assumes you have the right people in charge of it. You have leadership that understands the flaws of the current. Like, they just shared out liquidity wallets. Okay, $25 million. People are like, where's the rest of it? Setting that aside for the moment, $25 million readily available. Now, we don't know that all of that's readily available. We just know there's wallets. And we know that somehow those wallets are connected to another something. I said, well, at that point, you might as well arrest idiot Vitalik because he commingles funds. We can't, it's not a regulated space. So we can't apply the rules of regulated finance. Should they be? No, but you can't say, well, because they all do it. Vitalik does it. They all do it. So I don't do that. What I am saying is $25 million and you can't build a viable fucking blockchain? I keep going back to Dogechain. There's no way they invested more than a couple of $1 million to build what they built. Pepe, there's no way there was significant money put in it because there was just not, you're going too lofty. You fail after burning money, which I think is what happened. They burned money after they failed. Now they're scrambling to try to get things back on track. That's what I see. And that's what you would be investing in. is there's a hope, there's a cross fingers hope that they pull stuff together sufficient. Also consider that Bitcoin is roughly half where it should be. And we know the BDAG price is being influenced by Bitcoin's price because even though BDAG doesn't have any pairs with any of those others, the market, the pricing of the market is still influenced by Bitcoin's price. So we assume any sort of price appreciation on Bitcoin is going to result in some price appreciation on the BDAG coin. We have to keep an eye on that too. That's, again, people that know how that all works. Some might have dumped some money in it, but the vast majority, the vast array of people do not have significant coins in this thing. That's both scary and understandable at the same time. I am truly fascinated about what may or may not happen in this thing. And somebody else said, who was one of the consensus, said at that point, he was screaming and squawking about this so-called RICO, whatever. I was under the impression that the pusher of the RICO is locked up. That's what I was told, what I understood. And that there was a theory that said person might have misused those funds for their own legal case because they were driving drunk and might have jeopardized your kid on the road. I can't say that's what happened, but that's what I see. So I'm curious why anybody would put money in something when that happened. This told me there's a cult over there. And then you got this other side where they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So then it just adds to the cult. This is outlaw nonsense all the way around. Incompetence, rush to judgment, just mark them. Everything is just so, and I'm laughing not at people who got ripped, because anybody who gave money early on, I'm talking 2024 now, anybody who gave early on got ripped. You got ripped off. You got ripped off not because nothing was done. You got ripped off because later, when they pivoted, they didn't make you whole like they should have. That guarantee, yes, absolutely. And I'm not even talking bonus coins. I'm talking about the lockups. I'm talking about not allowing people to be made whole through the exchanges, holding back deposits. There were all sorts of things they didn't make you whole. And I think they should have made you whole. Somehow, we're hitting a very close bottom. And then we got to watch what happens, because I'm fascinated about what might happen. There are gamblers in this, not just the casino. And the price is going to do something. And I'm curious what that's going to be. I'm fascinated about what's going to happen on that. But from a tech perspective, this is rudimentary. I could probably build a better something at a fraction of the cost if I really wanted to. I just don't want to. But I probably could, because it's so rudimentary in what it's doing. If they do a Halburn audit, which they claim they're going to do, that'll reveal some stuff. I don't think they will, but let's see if they do. Let's hold them to it. Let's see if they do. Let's see what they do next, because that's all you can do, right? And then the January 1st, let's see what they do next. What I would say to you, listener, don't FOMO into anything. If you see the price go up, you shouldn't be buying. That's the trap in any crypto. Doesn't matter. That's the trap. Stop doing that. If you think something would happen, you should be looking for the best discount you can get. That's why I said, once it goes 5, I'm probably going to toss a little bit more in it as a DCA strategy, because there is a target amount of coins I'd love to hold, but I'm not willing to spend more than a certain amount of money to get there, right? So I look for discounts. If people push it down to that point, I would probably toss a little bit more in there, along with Bitcoin, along with Ethereum, along with BNB, because you're supposed to look for the discount if you think the price goes up. If you don't think the price goes anywhere, or you don't care, then do what you do. Sell, whatever. Just don't FOMO on the green. That's all I say, because there's no guarantee with this at all, number one. Number two, you shouldn't be buying high. You should not be buying when it's appreciating. That's crazy, because you're just going to lose money. You're just going to be exit liquidity. Somebody's going to dump one of these whales. And for what? Why? Don't put yourself in that. Don't do that. So, and I'm giving a forewarning here, like I did for Hotchko. I think there's going to be some sort of a pump up, not even due to anything the team's doing. I just think the Bitcoin price movement Once it dips down to a point, there's going to be an explosion up. And I think this is going to move. Don't FOMO if it does. If you think it will, look for the greatest discount you can get from the exchange. Don't buy from the site. Site's a trap. Go from the exchange. If you want to do it, go from the exchanges. Period. Do not buy from the site. Stop listening to the site narrative. It doesn't matter. If you want to do it, go for the exchange and look for the best price you can get. Let's say that's a simple $10 investment right now. Okay. If the price dips some more, do another $10. You get more coins. You get more coins. You get more coins. Let's say you only put $50 in the thing. Geez, $50 right now, you can get close to 500,000 coins. Your pre-sale number is probably less than 100,000. You got to make it, but now these would be sitting in your wallet under your control, not the team's. It's psychological. It's up to you if you just, my coins are locked in it. I can't help you if that's what you do. I'm telling you, if you think this will do anything, buy low, not high. Otherwise, do nothing. Just don't FOMO if the thing does explode like I think it's probably going to.